The 2003 invasion of Iraq by US and British forces led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. 179 British servicemen died between 2003 and 2009. Baghdad was captured early, but Iraq descended into a bitter Sunni-Shia conflict, now compounded by ISIS bombings. In 2009, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown announced an inquiry into the war.
It will consider the period from summer 2001, before military operations began in March 2003, and our subsequent involvement in Iraq right until the end of July this year.
7 years later, Sir John Chilcot will issue his report. It contains more than 2.5 million words, 4 times the length of Tolstoy's War and Peace. It's expected to criticize Tony Blair's government, the armed forces and the intelligence services. In 2001, following the Al-Qaeda attacks on America, Tony Blair told President George W. Bush he could count on Britain.
We therefore here in Britain stand shoulder to shoulder with our American friends in this hour of tragedy. And we, like them, will not rest until this evil is driven from our world.
After the invasion of Afghanistan and the overthrow of the Taliban government, President Bush turned his attentions to Iraq and Saddam Hussein.
The United States of America will not permit the world's most dangerous regimes to threaten us with the world's most destructive weapons.
Bush wanted to invade Iraq quickly, but Blair persuaded him to seek approval from the United Nations. In international law, a foreign regime cannot be overthrown unless it is an act of self-defense. Any intelligence that showed Saddam Hussein held weapons of mass destruction would be key. A British intelligence dossier claimed that the regime had, beyond doubt, continued to produce chemical and biological weapons,
which could be activated within 45 minutes, including against his own Shia population, and that he's actively trying to acquire nuclear weapons capability.
US Secretary of State Colin Powell said he had no doubt Iraq had weapons of mass destruction.
Here you see 15 munitions bunkers in yellow and red outlines. The 4 that are in red squares represent active chemical munitions bunkers.
UN inspectors found no chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons. MI6 intelligence, including the 45-minute claim, turned out to be wrong. In 2002, UK Attorney General Lord Goldsmith had stated that force against Iraq would require a new resolution by the UN Security Council. But in 2003, he changed his advice.
I then ultimately reached, when I had to reach a definitive view on this, a different view.
He told Tony Blair that an attack on Iraq could be legal without seeking further UN authority. As an invasion loomed, more than 1 million people marched against war on the streets of London. By March, Tony Blair had decided that Britain and America did not need any further UN resolutions. With a rousing speech, he received the support of the House of Commons.
This is not the time to falter. This is the time for this House, not just this government or indeed this Prime Minister, but for this House to give a lead. To show that we will stand up for what we know to be right. To show that we will confront the tyrannies and dictatorships and terrorists who put our way of life at risk.
That same day, UN weapons inspectors withdrew from Iraq on safety grounds. 2 days later, a coalition force, including British troops, began Operation Iraqi Freedom. Weapons of mass destruction were never found.
The intelligence we'd received was wrong, because even though he had used chemical weapons extensively against his own people, against others, the program in the form that we thought it was did not exist in the way that we thought. So I can apologize for that.
Millions of Iraqis were displaced. Hundreds of thousands died. The report will make a judgment on whether Tony Blair misled Parliament, what promises he made to George Bush, whether intelligence was misrepresented, and if cabinet government was subverted. It will make a judgment on the conduct of the military chiefs and their planning for the war's aftermath, whether the invasion raised the threat of terrorism in the UK. It is intended to be the last official word on the Iraq War, but it may not answer the most crucial question of all.
Tony Blair! War criminal!
Was the invasion of Iraq legal?